It's a wonderful day in the homiehood, a wonderful day for a homie. Won't you be my homie to Taro? There have been some more revelations, developments in the story with China's influence on Canadian elections. Now, I should put that in quotations because this is all alleged election interference. Reports coming out of CSIS. We've been following this story quite closely on this channel. The latest, yesterday, we heard a report from the Globe and Mail, another report based on a CSIS leak that China, a diplomat, their top diplomat in Vancouver, had potentially influenced the Vancouver elections. The article, which is here, basically alleged that, you know, this woman, Hong Xiao Ling, had played a role in electing one or maybe a few people to the city council of Vancouver, including Mayor Ken Sim. This is all part of the ABC party in Canada. I'm not sure what ABC stands for, but there is a joke amongst some people that I know that ABC stands for American Born Chinese. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but maybe it does. Now, what my takeaway from the article from yesterday was that the influence was to get this counselor, Lenny Xu, elected. My reading of the article was not that it was for Mayor Ken Sim. However, I think Mayor Ken Sim, and probably rightfully so, has taken offense to this happening. So there was a press conference yesterday somewhere outside of Vancouver City Hall, and I can't find the original audio, which is a bit frustrating. The original video is a bit frustrating because I know they record this stuff and they don't publish it the way like CPAC publishes a lot of stuff, just the full video, so you can get the full context, which would be nice because we could watch it here on stream. But unfortunately, I'm finding more and more that a lot of this kind of like raw material, raw data, especially when it comes to media, is kind of like gate kept. So there is a bit of a story that we can watch by like the CBC or Global News, I forget, but we can't witness kind of the full speech, which is a bit disappointing. Um, Ken Sim here is saying, if I was a Caucasian male, we're not having this conversation. To which degree I think is to some degree I think is true. However, of course, this is a conversation that is being lobbed at Justin Trudeau as well as someone who is potentially in bed with you know China during this time. However, I think there are subtle differences in the assumptions being made. There are several investigations and a special rapporteur being appointed to dig into that situation with Justin Trudeau further. I think there is a bit more assumption when it's happening to Ken Sim and what's his name, Lenny Xu, because they are simply just like, well, they are of Chinese like ethnicity. So there is a bit more of an assumption that, oh well, they must be propped up by China, which is xenophobic. Ken Sim goes on here to say, this is the signal that we send to the community that says you finally get a seat at the table and there are institutions that are going to knock you down. He added, I think it's disgusting. So I think this is a direct response to CSIS and the Globe and Mail as well for kind of just moving forward with some of these articles and printing them based on uncorroborated evidence. Ken Sim said he supported anything we can do to make our electoral institutions stronger. To which if I was a reporter, I would follow up and say, okay, well, do you support proportional representation? Do you support reforming our electoral system in a way that is fair for Canadians? and as a conservative, the ABC party in Vancouver is a conservative party. I do wonder what Ken Sim would say. I genuinely do. So the CSIS documents explain how in mid-November 2021, Ms. Tong talked about orchestrating the Chinese diaspora to help elect a new mayor and favored city councilor. So I don't like the language around this. I mean, like they say here, orchestrated, as if Tong Xiaoling is the puppet master of Vancouver city politics, and like at the snap of a couple, with the pulling of a couple strings, can simply get a new mayor elected and maybe somebody elected to city council as well. So I feel like if this were language that was about someone of Jewish faith, this would be called outright anti-Semitism by implying that someone of Israeli nationality or an Israeli diplomat was orchestrating the diaspora to elect the mayor and a city councilor. This would absolutely be called anti-Semitism, and in that case, I would agree with them. That is one of the things. In the U.S. there was a congresswoman whose name I'm forgetting now, who said that the Israel had hypnotized the world, and that was considered anti-Semitism. I think that is a Jewish stereotype, and that needs to be called out. So this is an interesting case, and something that I have been following. Obviously, is that just like the difference on how we treat these issues about China versus other countries that we are allied with. The difference on how we treat our allies and our adversaries, right? So Mr. Sim said, if there were proof of foreign interference, I would be mad as hell as everyone else. But he dismissed the possibility of such interference in relation to his own ABC Vancouver party. The next person who was not an ABC Vancouver person had to get 50% more of their own votes to catch up to our last place finisher, he said. So to say that any one person or group swung an election, I think it's kind of crazy. And he's right. It is kind of crazy, and we should be reflecting about how we report on these things, especially the Globe and Mail, who has been pushing these narratives and are essentially being the mouthpiece of the leaker. In 2022, Mr. Sim was joined on city council by Lenny Xu, as we just said, who came to BC as a graduate student from Beijing. Mr. Xu, a Canadian, was described earlier this week as holding views favorable to China by Vancouver activist Louis Huang. So that is this person here, Louis Huang. And yeah, he was part of the article we went through yesterday, and kind of alleged that Mr. Xu was part of this conspiracy. But Mr. Huang on Thursday apologized and said he was no longer certain it was Mr. Xu who made those comments. And even Mr. Xu's political opponents leapt to his defense. So the Globe and Mail is printing this yesterday, making this big deal about this. And now they're saying, oh, well, actually, Louis Huang, who had given us this information, has now apologized. And it just goes to show you that maybe we shouldn't be running with these stories based on uncorroborated evidence and opinions, right? Is this not, should there not also be an apology from the Globe and Mail here, saying, hey, sorry, we ran with this person's opinion, who later themselves even said that they were wrong, in order to construct this narrative, right? It's very concerning to me. Russell Wong, I don't know how to pronounce their name. It's Wvong. Russell Wong, who failed to win a seat last year alongside the former mayor Stewart. I would describe him as very pro-democracy and pretty anti-CCP, China's Communist Party. So this is in reference to Mr. Shu, the now city councilor of Vancouver. And yeah, this person, Russell Fuang, who is also someone who is of Chinese descent, it sounds like, is saying here that the Chinese are not omnipotent and omniscient. Yes, and I think that is part of the stereotype that is being formed here, is that China somehow is putting their hands in all levels of government. Federal government, provincial government in Ontario, and now the municipal government of Vancouver. And it's just a bit silly to think that our democracy is so weak in this sense that it cannot withstand this level of foreign influence. So the End of the Globe article here says that in 2018, no person of Asian descent won a Vancouver City Council seat. Okay. What does this what does this mean? Is this to imply that the sudden rise of Chinese people in the Vancouver City Council is shocking? One thing that really shocks me is that when white people sell their Vancouver home to some rich Chinese folks, they don't bat an eye. They don't think twice. But now that there's a Chinese person who is the mayor of Vancouver and some city councilors who might want to speak Mandarin every once in a while, now the red flags, I guess quite literally, are being raised. And it's just silly. Like you want to benefit from the housing boom that has been created in part because of Chinese investment. And now that there are so many people in the Vancouver area who would like to see a Chinese person be the mayor of their city, then you have a problem with it, right? And it's like you can't have it both ways. You can't have the best of both worlds. Hello, Only Twisted Fate. Thanks for appearing. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Yes, exactly. When so much of Vancouver is of Chinese descent, then you have to think they are going to be a significant voting bloc. And that's what Kenny, I think his name is Kenny Stewart, the former mayor of Vancouver, kind of screwed up. He screwed up and he faced the political fallout. So let's take a moment here and watch the video with Ken Sim. He is speaking out. It's only a 2-minute video, unfortunately, because we are limited to whatever mainstream media wants to show us. We can't see the raw footage.
To say that any one person or group, swung an election, I think it's kind of crazy.
Okay, come on. We need to put copyrighted music in this video. They're trying to. They're playing. Okay, this is the real scandal. They're playing Michael Jackson's ABC in the background because it's the ABC party that won this election.
In October, Ken Sim was elected in a landslide, becoming Canada's first Chinese-Canadian mayor.
We absolutely worked our butts off. We worked for 4 years. We had 19 candidates. We knocked on, 74,438 doors.
Now, 4 months later, he's answering questions about it after a report in the Globe and Mail. It says it's seen a January 2022 CSIS report which found that China's former consul wanted to help pro-Beijing politicians get elected to Vancouver City Council.
I still don't understand why this is a controversy. It's like China had an interest in electing pro-China candidates. Yes.
Sim defeated the incumbent Kennedy Stewart in the following election by nearly 37,000 votes.
Vancouver voters have a clear choice.
Stewart says CSIS briefed him last May about possible municipal interference.
The suggestion was they wanted somebody else's mayor, that they were deeply unhappy with my, I had cut off all communications with the consul general.
Today.
Yeah, you pissed them off. You pissed off people who were once like donors to your party. and then they decided not to donate to you anymore. I don't know why this is a scandal.
Stewart was blunt.
So I don't think foreign interference caused my loss.
Critics of Beijing
Good.
say it's not far-fetched the consul would have wanted to get rid of Stewart, who was pro-Taiwan.
So this kind of information definitely will affect a lot of Chinese descent voter, regardless where they're coming from.
Others say any evidence of interference should be made public.
Interfering with our elections is really an awful thing. And if it was really true, why haven't they charged somebody? Why haven't they expelled somebody?
As for Sim,
And like that is what is so frustrating about all of this. If CSIS has information, why doesn't it submit it to the RCMP? Why does it have to submit it to the Globe and Mail in order to create and form a narrative, as opposed to sending it to the RCMP where they can actually take action and do something about it?
he says he's being targeted because of his background.
If there is proof of this, I'd be as mad as hell as everyone else. But right now, there are a bunch of insinuations, and it's actually quite hurtful.
He says he hasn't had
He does look hurt. He looks like he's about to cry, to be honest.
any conversations with the current Consul General of China in Vancouver. CBC News reached out to the consulate for comment but did not get a response. Eva Yuguensenge, CBC News, Vancouver.
So, yeah, I think this is getting to the point where it's like blatant xenophobia. And I think Ken Sim is unjustly experiencing it. And as someone who has family members who are of Chinese descent, it is something that worries me as it spreads through all of Canada.